My name is Jennifer Jones. I work with Crossroads Safe House, which is a 31-year-old domestic violence shelter in Larimer County. We serve about 3,000 people every year, and we have a 24/7 emergency safe house that provides shelter for victims of domestic violence to the tune of about 400 people every year, sometimes over 400 people. In 2007, we started a capital campaign to build a new safe house because our current facility is not only antiquated, inefficient, and expensive to operate, but also it does not have the capacity to meet the demand of emergency shelter needed in Larimer County for domestic violence victims. Last year, we turned away 297 people because we didn't have space for them. So in 2008, Columbine Health Systems donated the Columbine East facility to us for use as a new safe house facility, and Justin Larson of JCL Architecture came on board and has donated many hours of service to help us get this project off the ground.
So the challenge, it was a great challenge and opportunity to be given this facility to be able to adaptively reuse it for Crossroads' mission. Existing facilities, and the presenters earlier may have said the same thing, there's a lot of just carbon footprint that exists in our existing structures, and how can we reuse these and be able to bring them forward with kind of revitalized new use. It helps, twofold, save the energy that it took to create that building, as well as helping to kind of restore the neighborhood that otherwise this project becomes a blighted element in the neighborhood. The facility had, for example, 190 doors that are weighing in about 200 pounds apiece, that are these giant, you imagine the long corridors of an institutional 50s nursing home. And so all those doors were pulled. They've became shelving, desk, and everything to come back into the facility. The next shot starts to show kind of some of the structure of the facility. They had a flat roof that then a truss roof was built over the top of. The truss roof was actually an engineered structural roof. So then next shot, we pull that roof out. We salvaged all of the material. So you imagine this is a 30,000 square foot building. That flat roof allowed us to build all the interior walls, blocking, everything else. And we didn't have to dispose of or fill the landfill with viable material. It had uninsulated walls and barely an insulation on the roof. So we doubled the insulation. We've replacing windows, which is an ongoing challenge for Crossroads.
Yes. The current facility also does not have insulation, and our windows throughout the current shelter are all single paned and are in casings that cannot support double pane windows. So we're essentially bleeding energy throughout the year, because in a Colorado climate and with 14 families living together, heating and air conditioning is essential throughout the year. So this was one of the things that we were able to remedy in the new facility.
And challenges in a new facility, as we walked through, the carpeting throughout looked about like what you're sitting on. Unknown to us, it had asbestos underneath almost all that carpeting. So we were able to, with looking at clean air and healthiness from the long-term aspect, we removed all the asbestos from the entire facility. All the products we're bringing back in are, low to zero VOCs. When we're putting in insulation, it's formaldehyde free. So we're really trying to be mindful of both how do we create this shell and environment that has clean air quality from the long standpoint.
The lighting in the current facility the entire facility is almost exclusively equipped with incandescent lighting. This is just a couple shots of what we're working with. And so it not only drives our facility director crazy as he's changing light bulbs nearly every day, but it's also unnecessarily expensive for us operationally.
And it's an opportunity that we have in a new facility that we can bring in not only just fluorescent bulbs, but actually ballasted fixtures that operate far more effectively and efficiently for the facility, as well as they weren't used well, but the daylighting, the nursing home actually had an array of windows as well as skylights in poor placement, that as we relocated the program for Crossroads, we were able to really capture all the daylighting, which is going to minimize their electrical loads.
This is a shot of what will be one of the dining rooms, right?
You're right, that's correct.
So the mechanical systems throughout the current facility are operating at about 80% efficiency. We are also working with almost all of our infrastructure is for residential single-family use. So all of our toilets, all the plumbing, refrigerators, washers and dryers are not only inefficient but also impractical. With 14 families sharing, 2 kitchens and 3 laundry rooms, it really makes it difficult to keep up with the cost and with just the practicality of living in that kind of an environment. Also, temperature control is a constant issue. This is our existing furnace, and you can see this is what we're working with now.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity to come in and be able to bring in high efficiency units, looking at both from mechanical to water usage that the facility can greatly reduce. And what we were kind of mentioning earlier is that one of our goals on the project was to not have to add any service into this building, meaning that we were able to bring an updated, basically state-of-the-art facility from electrical, mechanical, plumbing, all of those facilities into the infrastructure that was, primarily a 50s, meaning that we didn't upsize electrical. We were actually able to reduce electrical loads, gas loads, water loads throughout the facility. These photos show the existing landscape. One of the elements we did have to replace on the building were a number of walls that the metal studs and block work was corroding from the amount of overwatering of Kentucky bluegrass. I cannot imagine what the water usage when this was a nursing home was, but the new facility, if we jump to the next slide, is we've taken away acres practically of bluegrass, simplified it down to one small play area, and the rest will be xeriscape throughout.
So we're, of course, thrilled to be moving into this new facility in July as our move-in date. And not only has this really overhauled our environmental sustainability, but it's put our operations in alignment with our mission to help our clients become self-sustaining and self-sufficient. So we're excited to be moving in.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Cambon. I'm the tiniest green giant. I'm a commercial photographer. I have a large studio. I need to have that studio for the work that I do. Sometimes I shoot large products. Sometimes I shoot a lot of small products. In 1996, we changed to high-res digital. We're probably the first studio in certainly in Fort Collins to go to digital imaging. And that had a huge impact. It really cut our paper waste. We stopped processing film. I mean, it was just a gigantic environmental improvement. But then in 2000, the dot-com bust happened and everything changed again. People stopped spending money in a very big way, very suddenly. And so what happened was I joined ClimateWise a few years ago. I love ClimateWise. I'm sure you all do too. I had to let go of my employees in about 2003, and I wanted to show you, I just don't get this, the kind of reductions we have in energy use. In addition to that, I found that in this picture, we had that car that's in there. It was a drag car, and it had kind of volatile irritating fuel, and it turned out that it made sense for me just to open up all my doors and windows while I was shooting that. Well, it happened to be 45 degrees outside, and I figured out, hey, I don't really have to heat my studio all the time. I can just leave it at 45 degrees and it'll save a lot of money. And in fact, it really did save a lot of money. It's 41,600 cubic feet to keep heated, and I only take up 9 cubic feet. So it didn't really make much sense to heat at all for me. This is the effect of the changes that I made in terms of the gas usage when I started going to 45-degree thermostat setting anytime I'm not out there. If I'm working out there for a day or two, and particularly if there are clients involved, I'll have to warm it up. But I try to group those things together so that I'm only heating it one day and then, I hate to do it like Monday and Wednesday or Monday and Friday. Right now, my studio thermostat has been at 45 since last night when I went home at 5 o'clock. And it won't go up again until Monday morning at maybe 8 o'clock. In addition to that, we changed a lot of our electricity. Our electricity usage has plummeted because I did the same thing in my office areas, and keep those, cold unless I'm using them. They're all isolated. Whatever particular office thing I'm using, I can heat and be reasonably comfortable. We also installed photovoltaics, which now provide all the electricity that the whole operation uses. As a small company, I don't expect to save the world. I don't even really expect to save any money in all of these things. What I'm trying to do really is just cut down on my resource use, because I think it makes sense for people to be a little more reasonable with the stuff they use. We can't go on the way we've been. Anyway, thanks. If you have any questions?
I'm Angel. So this is Sarah Jane Kresimir. She is a member of 2 co-working spaces in Fort Collins, and she once co-worked in Liberia.
And this is Angel Kwiatkowski, and Angel is the madam of Cohere, a co-working facility here in town, and the author of 2 books on co-working.
So co is really at the heart of what we've been talking about today. So co-working gets its roots from community. So what community means is where a bunch of people bring their unique talents together into one place, and they share those gifts willingly with each other. So co-working happens anytime more than one motivated person gathers to work with the intent to create shared value for the community. So co-working is a worldwide movement that started in 2005. At last count, there were 700 co-working spaces worldwide, and that number is expected to double every year until 2020. So my business is Cohere. We've been located on Jefferson Street in Old Town since March 15th of 2010, so we just turned 1 a little while ago. Today we have 40 members, and we have open seating, as you can see in the photo right here. There's 12 workstations, and people just bring what they need for the day, and they occupy a space, and they collaborate and help each other with their work.
And then our other co-working facility here in Fort Collins is the Hive, which is located right on Mountain above Life of the Party. And we have 10 members, and it's a more intimate, small setting, and we feature a lot more doors than Cohere has, which is great if you have a line of work that has you on the phone most of the time.
So a lot of people wonder, can I co-work? And pretty much any kind of job title can co-work. So this is a list we threw together in a couple minutes, and most of these job titles co-work at one or both of the facilities. So historical mapper, meat scientist, bookkeeper, photographer, kale lover, lawyer, landscape architect, and climatologist, just to name a few.
And my personal story about co-working is that before I started co-working, I worked a traditional job in a traditional office environment, and I commuted 18 and a half miles one way. So it was 38 miles, including my mile for lunch that I left during the day, to an office. That used 9,880 miles of driving a year, 353 gallons, costing me about $1,200 a year just in gas. And when I was calculating this, I realized that in the 3 years that I was working there, I spent 260 hours in the car commuting to work, which is an entire month of my life where I was doing nothing but staring down I-25. Just really sad. But now, since I've switched to working in a co-working environment, I commute a whopping 1 mile each direction to either the Hive or Cohere, which is 3.75 gallons a year of gas, because I am factoring in 1 day a week that I'm driving my car, because maybe it's raining or snowing, or I'm carrying 20 pounds of snacks for my coworkers to share. That's $12.75 a year. So if each of you will give me $1 on your way out, we can cover all of my commuting costs for 2011 today. And the best part of all of this is that I'm not wasting that time anymore. Even when I am commuting now, I'm on my bike and I'm happy, or I'm walking and I'm happy, or even that little bit in the car I don't realize really in there, so it stays good.
She's serious about the money too.
Yeah, dollars, people.
So what this means is that when people leave traditional commutes and go to co-working facilities that are in their neighborhoods, they're fitter, happier, and more productive. So 91% of people who are surveyed globally about their co-working space are either very satisfied or satisfied with their overall experience. How many people can say that 91% of people who go to a traditional office are satisfied with that experience? 42% of coworkers report earning a higher income since joining a co-working space, which is significant for freelancers and independents. So we have a lot of eco efforts that we do in co-working communities. The biggest one that would be most familiar to you is that when everyone works from home or works from the coffee shop, we're heating those homes individually for each person to be there sitting at their desk for 8 hours. When we bring all of those people out of their homes and into a co-working facility, we're heating one building and they can all turn their programmable thermostats down at home. We also do a lot of aggressive composting, recycling. And because both spaces are located at the heart of Old Town, all of our spending is local. So we eat at the local restaurants downtown, we go to the local coffee shops, and our probably #1 location that we shop at is the food co-op.
Desk Mag is a magazine about co-working, and these are some more statistics on co-working. 82% of coworkers in the US feel more motivated and productive since joining, which benefits both the coworker themselves and the employer. Let's see, 716 co-working spaces by March of 2011, and the average cost of a flexible desk in the US is $192 a month. And anyone can co-work. All you need is a laptop and some earbuds, to-do list so that you stay on target. There will be lots of interesting people there who you'll want to have discussions with. But to keep that at bay, I find it's good to have a focus list of what I'm going to do that day. You want to make sure that you introduce yourself and ask questions of other people that are there. Interact in the environment and with the community there. And if you're interested about learning more about coworkers and the co-working movement here in Fort Collins, you can join the Meetup group, which is the mobile workforce group here in town.
And if you own a traditional company or you work for a traditional company, you can also participate in co-working by having an open mind about where your employees can work. So provide it as an employee benefit.
Just like my employer's social media pilots do for me.
Yes, just like that. So if it's blizzarding in Loveland and your employees live in Fort Collins, pay for them to come to a co-working space on that day so they have to drive a couple miles to get to work and they can still be productive. You won't lose that productivity from them risking their lives to get to your office. You could offer it as a 1-day-a-week option to start to see if you like it. And if you really want to be most valuable player for companies, offer a co-working stipend if you're hiring freelancers or contract workers and pay for them to work in a co-working space because the work that you'll get out of them will be better, faster, higher quality, and they have access to a whole pool of brilliant people when they're working on your project.
That's all we've got. You can find both of us on Twitter. Angel is at Cohere LLC, and I am at Savvy Sarah Jane. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Michael Kirk. I'm Director of Facility Service for Larimer County, and I have to preface this by saying that I'm working for the county, not the city. In many ways, of course, the fact that the city is sponsoring this event, they're really sold out to be green, and we're in the process of converting the county over, and it's going to take some time. And so I want to talk about a project that we did last year and that we completed called Maximization of Space. Now, because I work for the county and we're not as sold on green, a lot of times I have to be careful of the language that I use, the terminology that I use. And so I bought in totally to the Green Building Council, thought about the triple bottom line, because we are policymakers and many of the people within the county are all about the bottom line from a financial standpoint. I often stress the economic benefits of the things that we're doing in order to get buy-in, but many of the things that I do have both an environmental and a social impact. And so this project, particularly the maximization of space, was an attempt, and it's an initiative to change the mindset of county employees as it relates to space. and change how we think about our space. The history of space and paradigms, and this could be for not only for Larimer County government, but for most governments, because I've been with governments for about 25 years, is that within governments we have, there's always been this paradigm of control of space, that the individuals control the space, and that often results in the fact that anytime there's growth, people always equate growth as adding more space or increasing your footprint. So that's part of it. The other thing is that facilities is the space advocate, that we go out and we advocate this additional space for the end users. And then there's minor changes to the operations. And most of the time people just say, I have increased demand on my services, I need so many people, I need so much square footage. And so what this maximization of space initiative is all about is to change that paradigm where there's an increased focus on the utilization of the existing space. And the whole thing is about keeping our footprint where it is and better utilizing the space that we already occupy. Also, for this facility serves as a support role, that we don't go and we're not the advocate, but we give information to support the person's need for what has to happen. And then the other one is that now a part of the equation is that people look at how they're doing their business and see whether or not they can change their processes in order to not increase their footprint. The goal of maximization was the use of current space and to defer new capital projects and new leases as long as possible. The focus is to be stewards of the taxpayer dollars and be steward of the space that we already own. And so the goal becomes, how can I decrease the space we have, or how can I maximize the space that we have? And in doing that, what happens is the need for new construction to provide county facilities and county services basically can be deferred into the future. The objectives of accomplishing this was through consolidation of existing space, leverage our technology, let technology be an answer to a problem versus space, workplace strategies. Unbelievably, I'm the facilities director, but I am the workplace strategy champion within the county, and have pushed a lot of different initiatives such as teleworking, telecommuting, scanning, different things that will help us better use the space that we have to limit or eliminate our leases. In this maximization project, what we did was eliminate 6,000 square feet of lease space and utilize space that we already have. And then also in the process, enhance the space that we have in order that we can deliver our services a lot more efficiently. The project dealt with the fact that our Larimer County Courthouse building and our midpoint building, 2555 midpoint building, we wanted to do a consolidation, a renovation, and a relocation of our probation department from a lease facility. But then also the phase 2 will be implemented this year, and it's about our Loveland building. And if you're not familiar with our 6th Street Loveland building, it's a older building. It's a very inefficient energy building. When we put the information into to rate it against buildings of like kind, we kind of was 17%. We were at the bottom of efficiency, so the project is also to increase the energy efficiency, but then also increase the usage of the space. The situation and the opportunities there was that we had additional need for our probation department. They literally, in the building that they were in, they occupied 3,000 square feet. They needed, because of staff growth, to increase that to 6,000 square feet. And we could have just gone in the past, they would have just leased additional space, but the second option was to lease space at another location, but it was still additional 3,000 square feet. Yes?
Just 1 minute, I'm sorry.
Okay.
1 minute left.
Okay, 1 minute left. And the maximization of space, what we did was we took our existing courthouse building, consolidated space, and moved 2 departments into that space. And then out of the space that they vacated, we moved our probation department into it, and basically did not have to buy additional space. The benefits and the outcomes is that we eliminated and deferred over 6,000 square feet. We didn't increase our footprint. For the budget, we basically were under budget, and then we eliminated a $93,000 annual lease for property. But what we did was we increased the average space utilization in several of our buildings while meeting the needs. And then we located our services closer to the customers. And the whole purpose of this initiative is the fact of decreasing our square footage by basically maximizing the square footage that we have. And so part of that is pretty much is to also we are promoting workplace strategies such as teleworking and telecommuting, which is something very, very new to county employees, but is being done by by corporations and other municipalities and county governments. Any questions? Thank you.
So the question was, how much are you saving as you're reusing new materials in the Crossroads project?
From a save standpoint, it's probably close to 90% has been recycled back either into the building itself, or the interesting part is we've gone through the demolition process. There's a lot of, we gave the contractor the permission to subcontractors that as long as material was getting recycled and not put into the landfill, they were allowed to take galvanized pipe, copper, things like that to reuse in other locations. So we've, as we bring the project to a close, we'll be itemizing out exactly how many yards of dumpsters were actually used. There's things like rubber membrane roofing that is deteriorated to the point that you can't necessarily reuse it, but that was anything that was either recyclable was deferred from any landfill. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty much the county wants to start co-working and wants me to help them. No. If we have that on tape, that would be incredible.
Question mark at the end there. Right.
Yeah, imagine the tone of my voice went up as I said that. I think, quite honestly, we should have a meeting and talk about it. Because there's so many county employees. How many? Like 900 or 1,200? 1,700. Yeah, 1,700. So my facility can take about a total of 75 members. And the Hive can take 12. But I think I'm really excited to hear you ask the question, because we worry about when companies and governments send people to home to work, because they start to die inside. And only about 20 to 30% of people who get sent home to work actually thrive in that environment. It's very isolating. Your creativity is stifled. You start talking to your pets. You get distracted by your laundry and the dishes, and I'm gonna go make a sandwich. So if we could get counties and companies on board with co-working instead of sending people home, I think that the cost savings are significant. And I think we should talk about it more.
And one of the issues that came up when we had this discussion about doing this internally was the fact that, people saw this, our green team saw this as, okay, so they're not using energy here. So they just going to use energy home. And how many people would be using energy home? And so that was a thought that just, that came up, and I'd been thinking about how do I resolve that? How, what opportunities do we have to address that? And you came up with you already have an idea.
I'd love to respond to that. As a coworker, I spent an amount of time working from home where I was doing like a part-time shift and now spend all of my time in co-working facilities because I did see that increase in my energy bills and was talking to plants and things like that. But what I found is that since entering a co-working environment, I am exceedingly more productive when I am amongst other people who are working. And the efforts that we have there have actually, and we are very eco-minded in both environments, have helped me to implement more things at home, spurred on by learning and being in the community and being active with those people.
I think also if we can just take a moment to talk about cross-pollination in industries. If anybody's read The Medici Effect, they've actually found out that when you need to solve a really big problem, you put people of diverse backgrounds in the same room together. If you have a transportation problem, you don't put a bunch of transportation people in a room to solve it. You take a biologist and a climatologist and a road person and a factory worker and an assembly line and a web developer and an architect, and you put them all together and they will find the solutions that are actually innovative and make the most sense. So if we talk about government, you think about right now, government's so siloed and they stick all the departments together, and whatever task you're doing, you're sitting in the same cube or room with other people doing that same task. And so if you think about taking government out to co-working and mixing up the pot, and so you put a probation officer next to a career counselor, next to a sheriff, next to a facilities worker and an accountant, and see what happens, because you'll find that they'll start to cross-pollinate and help each other solve complex problems that can't be solved when you're with people in your same industry. Yeah, she's asking what the difference is between Cohere and the Hive.
And it's truly, I think that there's a small kind of environment different. Each has their own unique feel because of the communities that are drawn to each place. But the true difference between the two environments is that the Hive is smaller and has more private office space. So it's still open, but there's more, if someone is on the phone a lot, they're going to probably prefer the Hive over Cohere, whereas Cohere is extremely, sometimes we call the big room that has most of the desks in it, I'll call it the Thunderdome, a little tongue-in-cheek, because we are kind of passing information back and forth and talking to each other and interacting all day long. So if you need a tangible desk where you feel like, okay, I'm surrounded by people, but I'm in my environment, and it stays the same static, then it would be the Hive. And if you're looking to be more interactive with people, it's Cohere. But I would like to say that one of the great things about both places is that though they're independently owned, they work cooperatively to build co-working groups, and we hold a lot of events together, and our Christmas party was joined, things like that. So it's really awesome because it's a one big community with two tangents.
Is there any degree where language and adopting the language of, we heard the triple bottom line, sustainability, is there any barrier to implementing these in-house, but then also to the public?
One of my favorite stories for that is that we're, as an architectural firm, that's one of our goals, but we do work from New Mexico to Nebraska and through Wyoming. Some states like New Mexico have an enormous tax credit that far outweighs Colorado. So from that bottom line statement, you can get people that want to do sustainable projects very easily because it's so economically favorable. Most of our lead projects are actually in Wyoming, and when people hear that, they're like, really? I don't think of Wyoming being that progressive. And I think one of the key understandings that we don't talk so much, I don't mention green when I'm in Wyoming, I mention energy independence. And when you speak appropriately to who your audience is, I think that the barriers that you mentioned can easily be, everybody has what their goals are, and I think from a sustainable approach, you can address their needs and still have, for us, it's the built environment that we work in, really meet what your client's goals are, both from a budget as well as an ownership standpoint.
For organization with 1,700 employees, you definitely have to have a change management plan, and you have to spend the time to have an awareness piece and an education piece. One of the things that the barriers that I ran into in promoting a whole lot of things, green as well as workplace strategies, is the fact of the people not really knowing what those things were, and a lot of misinformation as to what they were. And so we are spending a lot of time to make employees aware of, what is this terminology, workplace strategies, alternative workplace, teleworking, telecommuting, and in educating them, then people understand a lot better of what we're trying to accomplish and how it fits who we are. Because a lot of what I did is I tie things to our vision and say, this is who we say we are, this is why we should do these things. But there's a lot of change management that has to occur, and a lot of awareness and education.